व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। यस्वानुभावम् अखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपम् अतितितीर्षतां तमोन्दम् संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनाम्। श्रीमद्भागवतं नाम पुराणं लोकविश्रुतं शृणुयात् श्रद्धयात् युक्तः मम सन्तोषकारणम्। मेनिरे भगवद्रूपं शास्त्रं भागवतं कलौ पठनात् श्रवणात् सद्यः वैकुण्ठ फलदायकम्। मेनिरे भगवद्रूपं शास्त्रं भागवतं कलौ। Bhagavan never ceases to assure us, because our mind is so fickle that we need constant assurances all the time. One assurance a day is also not enough. But then luckily for us, Bhagavan is so very compassionate and so very patient with us that he never ceases to keep assuring us all the time. Towards the end of Krishna Avatara, when Krishna decided to ascend, go back to Vaikuntha, Uddhava insisted that he too will follow suit. But then Krishna had other plans for Uddhava. And therefore Krishna assures Uddhava that even though he may not be in Bhuloka, his presence can still be experienced through Bhagavata Purana. Menire Bhagavadrupam Shastram Bhagavatam Kalau. So therefore, in Kali Yuga, it is through Bhagavatam that we can continue to experience the same bliss that the Gopikas of Vraja experienced. This is Krishna's assurance. Now, Padma Purana beautifully describes. So when Krishna says, I manifest as Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Padma Purana describes how Krishna manifests, takes the form, how Bhagavatam can be visualized as the very embodiment of Sri Krishna. It says, Padau yadiyau pratamadvitiyau tritiyaturyau katitau yaduru nabhistata panchamayeva shashtaha bhujantaram do yugalam yatantau kantasturajan navamo yadiyo mukharavindam dashamam prapullam ekadashau yasya lalata patakam shiropi yadvadasha eva bati Tamadidevam karunanidhanam tamalavarnam suhitavataram apara samsara samudrasetum bhajamahe bhagavataswarupam. Bhajamahe bhagavataswarupam. Padma Purana beautifully describes how we can visualize Krishna through Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Padau yadidau prathamadvitiyau. The first two skandhas of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Prathama Skandha and Dvitiya Skandha, represent Sri Krishna's divine lotus feet. It is always said that whenever we visit a temple and we start to experience Bhagavan, the Divya Mangala Vigraha of Bhagavan, it is recommended that we start with his divine lotus feet. In Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, the first canto of Bhagavata establishes the Paratva of Krishna. The two cantos represent his divine lotus feet. The first canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam covers the history of Bhagavatam. The history as beautifully narrated by Suta to the rishis of Naimisharanya. The narration on how Bhagavatam, the advent of Bhagavatam, in that process we get to understand Parikshit's charitra and how Parikshit chastised, disciplined Kalipurusha. The beauty of the first skanda is not only we get to understand Bhagavan's Paratva, his supreme transcendental nature, we also get to understand his reciprocal love through scintillating stutis, Kunti Stuti, Bhishma Stuti. We see how supreme bhaktas communicate through effective prayers with Bhagavan and how Bhagavan reciprocates with them. So the first skanda sets the stage for the journey of Bhagavatam by explaining the transcendental nature and the loving nature of Sri Krishna. In the second skanda, the theme of bhakti, the supremacy of bhakti yoga is further expanded. In the first skanda, bhakti as the means to mukti is conclusively declared. And also, the very dharma, the supreme dharma of every jivatma as bhakti is conclusively declared. And in the second skanda, the theme of bhakti is further expanded on. Various ways and means of meditating on Bhagavan is taught in the second skanda. The Shastras are so very compassionate. They do not just prescribe only one means, only one sadhana. The second skanda deals with a variety of sadhanas, including Ashtanga Yoga. Meditation on the Virata Rupa of Bhagavan. How can we, by looking at the universe, contemplate on Bhagavan? Meditating on the Virata Purusha. Meditating on the Paramatma, the indweller within. How by worshipping various devatas, we can worship the Supreme Being. All these are taught in the second skanda. So the first skanda and the second skanda establishes bhakti as the means to mukti and also establishes this transcendental nature. That is why Padau Yadidau Prathamadvitiyau Tritiya Turiyau Katitau Yaduru. Tritiya Turiyau Katitau Yaduru. Now, as we visualize the Divya Mangala Vigraha of Krishna, Padma Purana says, the third skanda and the fourth skanda are considered to be the divine thighs of Krishna. In the third skanda, the samvada between Vidura and Maitreya is so very revealing. Through Vidura Maitreya samvada, the two very important topics of Sarga and Visarga are taken up. What is Sarga? Sarga is primary creation. Visarga is secondary creation. Samashti Srishti, Vyashti Srishti. Aggregate creation, individual creation. This creation of this entire universe, how it happens? It happens in two stages. Sarga deals with the primary creation. Bhagavan takes up the task of the primary creation and then he appoints Chaturmukha Brahma for the sake of doing individual creation. Visarga. Through Vidura Maitreya Samvada, the two important topics of Sarga and Visarga are also taken up. Also, the third skanda has a detailed exposition on Varaha Avatara. And one more important avatara, Kapila Avatara. Kapila, son of Kardama Prajapati and Devahuti. Kapila Sandesha is one of the scintillating topics in the third skanda of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. The fourth skanda continues with Visarga. The fourth skanda deals with Dhruva Charitra. Deals with Dhruva Charitra and also highlights the nature of the supreme bhakta, taking the example of Dhruva. So the third and fourth skandhas, therefore, Tritiya Turiyau Katitau Yaduru Nabhistata Panchamayeva. Bhagavan's divine Nabhi Kamala is represented by the Panchama Skandha. Panchama Skandha elaborates on Vedic cosmology. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam has a whole lot of details on geography, astrology, astronomy, and the universe as was understood by the ancient seers is so very beautifully detailed. Panchama Skandha takes up the topic of Vedic cosmology and it gives a graphic presentation of the Brahmanda, all the lokas in the Brahmanda, a very detailed explanation of Brahmanda. And in the process of describing Vedic geography, also deals with Jambudvipa, Bharatavarsha, Bharatakanta. We get to see the lineage of Priyavrata. In the fourth skandha, the lineage of Uttanapada is taken up and we get to see Dhruva Charitra. In the fifth skandha, lineage of Priyavrata, Agnidra, Nabhi, Rishabhadeva, Bharata. We all today know our desha as Bharata Desha, ruled by Bharata. Originally it was Nabhi Varsha. Eventually it became Bharata Varsha. Agnidra, Nabhi, Rishabhadeva, Bharata, all belonging to the lineage of Priyavrata, who is brother of Uttanapada. So therefore in the fifth skandha, we get a very detailed account on Vedic geography. We get to understand the geographical details of Bhuloka. And then the Sukha further expands. He covers all the lokas, the Urdhva lokas, the Adho lokas, the entire Brahmanda, and he gives an account on Vedic cosmology. Nabhistata Panchamayeva Shashtaha Bhujantaram. Bhujantara, the chest, the sixth skandha is considered to be Sri Krishna's chest. It is where Rakshakatva of Bhagavan is explained in detail. How he is a Rakshaka, he protects not only a select few, he protects all without any discrimination. This is what we need to understand about Bhagavan's Rakshakatva. And Ajamila's episode, the Charitra of Ajamila, beautifully gives us how Bhagavan is a Rakshaka to one and all. Therefore, the sixth skandha is considered to be Sri Krishna's Bhujantara, the chest. Dor Yugalam Yatanyo. And then the seventh and the eighth skandhas are considered to be Sri Krishna's divine arms. The seventh skandha and the eighth skandha are Sri Krishna's divine arms. In the seventh skandha, we get to relish Prahlada Charitra, Nrsimhavatara. And in the eighth skandha, Shuka takes up a beautiful narration on the time, the cyclicity of time, and he talks about various manvantaras. Manvantara, every manvantara is a small, short segment, a slice of the time. In our Puranas, there is a very, very detailed explanation of how time is divided and how do we look at cyclicity of time. One kalpa of Brahma, kalpa is a day. One kalpa of Brahma is 14 manvantaras. So all the manvantara, every manvantara is ruled by a Manu. So in the eighth skandha, all the manvantaras and the glories of all the Manus are described. Now, every manvantara, one manvantara is equal to 71 Chaturyugas. So one kalpa is equal to 14 manvantaras, which is equal to 14 multiplied by 71,000 chaturyugas. So if one chaturyuga is 4.32 million years, then one kalpa is 4.32 billion years. Every day of Brahma is one kalpa. The current Brahma is a middle-aged person, 50 years or over. And that is why we are in Dvitiya Parartha. Brahma's life is divided into Prathama Parartha, Dvitiya Parartha. We all remember when you do Sankalpa, Dvitiya Pararthe, Shvetavaraha Kalpe, Vaivashvata Manvantare, Ashtavimshati Thame. So which means we are in Shvetavaraha Kalpa. In Shvetavaraha Kalpa, out of 14 Manvantaras, we are in the 7th Manvantara, Vaivashvata Manvantare. Within Vaivashvata Manvantara, there are 71 Chaturyugas. Out of 71 Chaturyugas, we are in the 28th Chaturyuga. In the 28th Chaturyuga, we are in Kali Yuga, the 4th Yuga. Approximately 5,500 plus years of Kali Yuga have passed by, out of 432,000. Long time to go. So in the 8th skanda, a very interesting narration on the cyclicity of the time, on the manvantaras. At the same time, in the process, there are some gems also are presented. Gajendra Moksha, Kshirabdhi Matana. All of these are covered in the 8th skanda. Shashto Bhujantaram do Yugalam Yatantau. Kantastu Rajan Navamo Yadiyo. Kantastu. Kanta. Sri Krishna's divine throat is considered to be the 9th skanda. Navama skanda. In the 9th skanda, Shuka narrates the two important lineages, Surya Vamsha, Chandra Vamsha. And in the process of detailing Surya Vamsha, he talks of Ambarisha Charitra, he talks of the race of Ikshvakus, and in the process of highlighting the race of Ikshvaku, passingly Rama Avatara is narrated. And the Chandra Vamsha is also detailed, and therefore the 9th skanda becomes the introduction to what is to come in the 10th skanda. So Surya Vamsha, Chandra Vamsha are detailed in the 9th skanda. Kantastu Rajan Navamo Yadiyo. Mukharavindam Dashamam Prapullam. Mukharavindam Dashamam Prapullam. The Dashamaskanda is considered to be the divine, magnetic, enchanting face of Sri Krishna. No, this is the summum bonum of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. No, this is the reason why Vyasa endeavored to actually write the Bhagavatam. Vyasa was dejected after compiling the Vedas, after classifying the Vedas into 4, after writing the Brahma Sutras, after writing the Mahabharata, Vyasa was dejected. And therefore, in order to alleviate his dejection, Narada recommends that he needs to immerse himself in Krishna Cheshtita. You have spent enough time. Mahabharata was supposed to be centered around Krishna Avatara, but Vyasa ended up covering all the unnecessary details of all those people who are irrelevant. And then therefore, he endeavors to write Krishna Charita, and in order to prepare all the seekers to receive the nectar of Krishna Cheshtitas, he spends 9 skandas and then finally comes to the crux, to the summum bonum of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Mukharavindam Dashamam Prapullam. All the Krishna Cheshtitas are described throughout Dashamaskanda. Throughout Dashamaskanda, we get to experience Krishna throughout his not childhood, boyhood, and then eventually adulthood. Ekadashau yasya lalata patakam. Ekadashav, the 11th skanda of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, is considered to be the divine forehead of Krishna. It is in this skanda we get the gem of Uddhava Gita. No, it is in the 11th skanda Krishna decides to ascend and go back to Vaikuntha, and it is in this skanda that the glorious conversation with Uddhava happens, which is what is described as Uddhava Gita. Ekadashau yasya lalata patakam shiropi yat dvadasa evabati. And then the last skanda, 12th skanda, is considered to be Krishna's head, divine head. This is the concluding part of Bhagavata, where Shuka takes up a very important narration on Pralaya. The 4 different types of Pralaya are beautifully described. Nitya Pralaya, Naimittika Pralaya, Prakrita Pralaya, Atyantika Pralaya. We think Pralaya is only one type. Pralaya is of 4 types. Nitya Pralaya, Atyantika Pralaya. Let's take these 2. Nitya Pralaya is death that keeps happening all the time. Every living being that takes birth has to die. So there is Nitya Pralaya happening all the time. This Samsara Mandala is subject to Nitya Pralaya all the time happening. So that is Nitya. Nitya Atyantika Pralaya. Atyantika Pralaya is liberation. When death happens with no further rebirth. That is Atyantika Pralaya. Those Jivatmas which qualify for liberation and are ready to attain moksha upon death. Dehavasane muktihi. This is Atyantika Pralaya. These are 2 types. There are 2 more important pralayas. Naimittika Pralaya, Prakrita Pralaya. What is Naimittika Pralaya? In Brahmanda, there are 14 lokas. Bhuloka, and then there are 7 urdhva-lokas, including Bhuloka, 7 adho-lokas. Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyaha. These are urdhva-lokas. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Patalas. These are all adho-lokas. Naimittika Pralaya is in a Brahmanda, all the lokas up to Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha get destroyed. Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha alone survive. This happens at the end of 1 kalpa of Brahma, which means there are pralayas happening after every day of Brahma. The Brahma lives for 100 Brahma days, there are 100 Naimittika Pralayas. Every time a Naimittika Pralaya happens, all the Adho Lokas and 3 Lokas in the Urdhva Lokas, Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, get destroyed and recreated again and again and again. This is a cyclical process that keeps going on and on. This is Naimittika Pralaya. And then comes Prakrita Pralaya. Even Brahma has a lifespan. Chaturpuka Brahma. After 100 days of 100 kalpas of Brahma, Prakrita Pralaya happens. Prakrita Pralaya is when entire, not just this Brahmanda, all the Brahmandas are all dissolved. That's when dissolution happens and everything in Prakriti goes into a state of Laya. That is Prakrita Pralaya. For another Srishti again to happen. So the 12th skanda of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam covers in detail all the kinds of pralaya. Tamadidevam karunanidhanam tamalavaranam suhitavataram apara samsara samudra setum bhajamahe bhagavata swarupam. He is Samudra Setu. Padma Purana describes Krishna as Samudra Setu. Samsara Samudra Setu. Apara Samsara Samudra Setu. He is the Setu. Setu means bridge. He is the bridge with which we can cross over the ocean of samsara. Krishna is Samudra Setu, Samsara Samudra Setu. Krishna is not just the only shelter. He is the starter, sustainer and summit of our journey. Whether we recognize it or not, he is the starter. It is with his nirhetuka kripa that we get our direction right. After several lifetimes spending in the cycle of births and deaths, there comes one blessed day, and with his kripa we get our direction right. And therefore, for our spiritual journey, Krishna is the starter. It is not enough once we get on board on this journey. In samsara, we are repeatedly and constantly pulled apart. Every step we take forward, we are pulled 10 steps backwards. That's the nature. And therefore, we need him to sustain this journey. He is our sustainer. And as he sustains and supports and stays with us, he is also the eventual summit. Krishna is the Setu. He is the eternal benefactor. Always staying with us, always looking out for our well-being. He is a transformer par excellence. Mere contact with him purifies us. His nama alone is enough to purify us. And he is like a magnet which not only attracts, which also keeps purifying. Now, this is the beauty of the magnet called Krishna. Now, ordinary magnet can only attract, but if there is rust and dust accumulated on an object, then the object will not get attracted. But Krishna is a magnet where he not only attracts, he also simultaneously purifies and strengthens that attraction. So he is a transformer par excellence. And he is also a universal redeemer. Therefore, he is a Setu. A universal redeemer. He redeems everyone without any distinction whatsoever, without any discrimination whatsoever. We may wonder, why do we feel alienated from him? It is because we have locked the door from our side, whereas he keeps the door from his side always unlocked. Now, there is a door between us and Krishna. While he keeps the door on his side unlocked, we keep the door on our side locked. Many of us don't even realize there is a door. And we don't realize it is locked. And we don't feel the need to unlock it. And he is repeatedly sending us messages saying, my side of the door is unlocked. Open, open, and open. And without any discrimination whatsoever, he gives an opportunity for one and all. And eventually, with his grace, one fine day we get to discover the door, unlock the door from our side, walk through the door to immerse ourselves in Krishna Anubhava. Therefore, he is Apara Samsara Samudra Setum Bhajamahe Bhagavata Swarupam. In Kali Yuga, we saw in the first chapter of Bhagavata Māhātmyam, we saw the dangers of Kali. We saw how Kali Purusha makes us go through unimaginable sufferings. We know that our mind has a function. The mind has a function to do. But we also know the mind keeps malfunctioning all the time. In Kali Yuga, unfortunately, the function of the mind is to malfunction. In Kali Yuga, the mind only knows one thing, to malfunction. And the two malfunctions of the mind. Two malfunctions are distortion, distraction. And in Kali Yuga, the sources for distraction keep exponentially increasing. We all experience that today. Only 5,500 odd years have passed by. So can we imagine what is going to happen after several more years going into Kali Yuga? The sources of distraction keep increasing so very exponentially. Therefore, everyone in Kali Yuga stays in a mode of distraction all the time. On the other hand, Kali Yuga also impurities, lots of impurities we get accumulated through the Kali, and therefore the distortion because of impurities also increases. Because of distortion, our vision completely gets perverse, and therefore it is in this Kali Yuga that we get robbed. That is what in the first chapter of Bhagavata Māhātmyam, it is clearly written how Kali Purusha robs us. Who is the ultimate thief? The ultimate thief is illusion in the form. Kali Purusha takes the form of illusion and completely robs us. So let's take an analogy of thieves coming and stealing the property. Now when thieves come and steal the property, the victim still has recourse to go to the bank, and whatever is left as savings in the bank, the victim has recourse to withdraw from the bank. But then to withdraw from the bank, the victim needs some identity proof, some bank documents, some debit card, some ID proof. Now imagine if the thieves not only steal the property, they also steal the identity proof of the victims. Now the victim has a problem. Until another identity proof is arranged, he or she cannot even withdraw from the bank. Now imagine the thieves are so very harsh that they not only steal property, not only steal the identity proof, they also steal the very identity of the victim by inducing some sort of amnesia. The victim becomes completely helpless, clueless, completely lost. We are all those victims in Kali Yuga. The Kali Purusha steals our spiritual property. Bhakti is our spiritual property. Bhakti is our natural state. But in Kali Yuga, we somehow seem to struggle to experience our own natural state. What has to come naturally to us? We struggle. We have to put a lot of effort. We say we have to acquire bhakti. Bhakti is not to be acquired. Bhakti is to be discovered. But Kali Purusha steals, robs us. The spiritual property is robbed. Not only that, not only our property is robbed, all our identity documents are robbed, including our very identity. So therefore, we struggle not knowing our identity. We struggle because of spiritual amnesia. And we do not know, because the property is lost, we do not have taste for Krishna. We struggle to love Him and serve Him. And because our very identity is lost, we do not even have a clue as to who we are and whose we are. And we even question, should I even worship Him? Why should I worship Him? Questions like, why should I even worship Him arise only because of the loss of our very identity. And thus, Kali Purusha rules us in such a way that the ultimate thief steals everything away from us and we are completely clueless, rudderless, helpless. Bhakti Devi, therefore, is in distress. This is where the first chapter of the Bhagavata māhātmyam concludes. Bhakti Devi is in deep distress. She looks around Kali Yuga. She herself struggles in Kali Yuga. Traveling all over Bharata Desha, Bhakti Devi loses all her vitality, becomes old, crippled, bruised, beaten, and eventually reaches Rajabhumi on the banks of Yamuna, regains her beauty, regains her vigor. But unfortunately, her sons, Jnana and Vairagya, are struggling, are in a state of coma, because nobody wants to even take a look at them. And it is then that Narada happens to meet Bhakti Devi. Bhakti Devi is in distress and Narada endeavors to dispel the darkness of distress. The conversation between Bhakti Devi and Narada discovers the history, the background, and then Narada assures, Narada uvacha, Vrta kedayase bale, aho chintathura katam. Why are you in a state of anxiety, Bhakti Devi? Bhakti, you are supposed to reduce the anxiety of people. You yourself are anxious. Why is this anxiety? In Kali Yuga, there is one pandemic. There are several pandemics, but there is one underlying pandemic, the anxiety pandemic. The anxiety pandemic rules in Kali Yuga because of the nature of the world, unpredictability. And therefore, Bhakti Devi herself is in anxiety. She is so very anxious, and therefore Narada is saying, hey Bhakti, why you should be anxious? Why? What is the reason? You should not be. Sri Krishna charanam bhojam smaradhukkam gamishyati. You very well know The only cure for all our agitations is total absorption in Krishna. When the mind is absorbed in Krishna, such a mind will never get agitated. And Narada tells Bhakti Devi, you must know that Sri Krishna Charanam Bhojam Smara Dukkam Gamishyati. Don't you know, Bhakti Devi? Draupadi cha paritrata yena kaurava kashmalat palita gopa sundaryaihi sa Krishna kvapino gataha. Sa Krishna kvapino gataha. Krishna has gone nowhere. Do not despair. He is very much with us. He is very much with us, and you must not be in despair. Don't you know how he protected Draupadi? He was not physically there when Draupadi was dishonored. Draupadi cha paritrata yena kaurava kashmalat. Krishna is always with us. Draupadi discovered it a little late. Who is the most nearest to us? The Shastras loudly declare, Krishna is the most nearest to us. But why don't we realize that he is the nearest? Because until he becomes our dearest, we do not realize that he is our nearest. Draupadi realized it a little late. She went seeking protection from everybody and anybody in Dyutasava. And finally she recognized that Krishna is the one who is the nearest to her. Why should be wasting time calling out for protection from everybody else? And that realization resulted in her calling out to call Krishna her dearest. Draupadi cha paritrata yena kauravash kashmalat palita gopa sundaryaha. All the gopikas of Vraja repeatedly highlight that message that Krishna is not gone. Krishna remains with all of us. The love of gopikas repeatedly show how Krishna can be our nearest when he becomes our dearest. So therefore, Bhakti Devi, there is no reason for you to be anxious. There is no reason for you to worry. Tvam tu bhakti priya itasya satatam pranathodika. And you must know, you are Krishna's prana. And you need not be worried. There will be a solution that can be found for Kali Yuga. Your anxiety is valid. Bhakti Devi is anxious because of the way Dharma is degrading in Kali Yuga and people have lost touch with Jnana, Vairagya and Bhakti. Therefore, Narada is reassuring Bhakti Devi. You must know that a solution will be found and I will find the solution for you. Hey Bhakti Devi, Kali tu kevala bhaktir brahma sayujya karini. If you are dejected, if you become anxious, then what other option, what other means is available for people of Kali Yuga? Because you are the only means for people of Kali Yuga to attain Krishna. So therefore, you must stop grieving. Kali tu kevala bhaktir brahma sayujya karini. You are the means to attain Krishna. Iti nischitya chidrupaha sadrupam tvam sasajjaha. Chidrupaha. Bhagavan, who is the very embodiment of knowledge, he therefore manifested. He then created you. Sadrupa. This beauty, this beautiful form of yours has been created to attract everyone in Kali Yuga. Paramananda Chinmurtihi Sundarim Krishna Vallabha. Sundarim, you are Krishna Vallabha. Why should you worry? You should not worry. I will find a solution. Narada promises Bhakti Devi. Says, it is my promise to you that I will visit nook and corner of Bhuloka spreading your message so that there will be a revival in Bhuloka, revival of Bhakti, and therefore all the ills of Kali Yuga can be addressed. You do not worry. Let me also reassure you, Bhakti Devi. Krishna himself has declared that everyone, anyone, without any discrimination whatsoever, by adopting you as the means, can attain him. And Krishna also has assured that even those who are sinful, the door is open to attain Krishna. In the Gita, Krishna declares, Apichetsu sadachara duracharaha ananya bhak bhajate mam ananya bhak. Even durachara. This is a very important declaration that Krishna makes in the Gita, and Narada is once again emphasizing to Bhakti Devi. Even those Apichetsu duracharaha bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva cha samantanya mantavya. Even those who are sinful, who have loads and loads of papa karma, even if they take one step, even if they make an attempt to love Krishna and serve him through bhakti, they are considered to be sadhu, they are considered to be virtuous. Sadhureva samantavyaha samyako vyavastito hi saha. Now, that declaration of Krishna and Narada's assurance to Bhakti Devi that in Kali Yuga, even if people who have accumulated loads and loads of papa karmas, the door to attain Krishna is still open to them, is so very reassuring. Not only to Bhakti Devi, to all of us. But one question may arise here. How can grievous wrongdoing go together with devotion? How can even Krishna make this declaration saying, even those who are sinful, if they start to love him, then they too become virtuous? We can understand this taking the same analogy that we often take, the analogy of the ocean and the waves. Samsara is like an ocean, and we are all caught in this ocean of samsara. We are subject to repeated waves, different kinds of waves. And especially in Kali Yuga, the waves of temptation and tribulation increases. The variety, the velocity, the volume of problems in the form of waves in the ocean keeps increasing. That is the nature of samsara. But when we take this analogy, when we are subject to a wave in the ocean, it is only natural that we get pulled away. We get pulled away. Every wave that hits us, it is only natural that we get pulled away. And many times when waves of temptation and tribulation hits us, it is possible that we get deviated. We get misaligned with our own moral and spiritual standards. And it is in those times that it is very important that in the same ocean of samsara, Bhagavan Krishna is present as a steady anchor available to us. The beauty of this anchor is, it's not that it is only present in one place in the ocean. It is a limitless anchor present everywhere. Wherever we want, we can access the anchor. The limitless anchor called Krishna is available everywhere, and wherever we are in this ocean of samsara, in whatever position we are in this ocean of samsara, that anchor called Krishna is available to us. Now, when our hold of the anchor called Krishna, when it is weak, or when the wave of samsara is so very strong, or when it is both, most often it is a combination of both. Our hold of Krishna is weak and this wave of samsara is so very strong that it is very natural that hit by such a wave, we tend to commit wrongdoings, regrettably. Repentance alone is not enough during those times. What is important is we do fall down. In samsara, falling down is not a failure. Staying down is a failure. Falling down happens, but staying down is what Krishna says, the one samyak vyavasito hi saha, the one who resolves not to stay down, the one who resolves when the wave that hits will pass. Once again, that is the nature of this world. There can be different kinds of waves, strong waves, weak waves, but every wave that hits us has to pass. Krishna says, anyone who even attempts to hold on to this anchor of Krishna momentarily during the time when the wave ceases to hit, Krishna is so very magnanimous, he makes a declaration that his magnanimous focus is not on condemning us that we got swept away by a wave. His magnanimous focus is on our attempt to hold on to him after the wave passes. His focus is not on the wrongs that we commit. His focus is on whether our heart is committed to him. And when he looks at that little bit of commitment, Krishna makes an assurance that irrespective of our past conditionings, Bhagavan knows that our past conditionings, our vasanas are so very strong and it is not easy for us to overcome. So therefore, he is ready to give us pass marks. It's like a very lenient teacher. There were days when 60 used to be a pass mark. Then it became 50. Then it became 35. Krishna as a teacher, you take 1 mark, come on, I promote you to the next standard. He's so very lean, so very compassionate. He knows how difficult it is for us to overcome our past conditionings, and because of these past conditionings, for us to face our present conditions also become very, very difficult. As long as our focus is on Krishna's unconditional love, not on our conditionings and our conditions, Krishna says, I will ensure that you will cross over the ocean of samsara. And Narada is reminding Bhakti Devi, Bhakti Devi, you are anxious because you are worried. What is redemption for all the samsaris in Kali Yuga? There is redemption. You are that very redemption, Bhakti Devi. You must know, and I will find a solution. I will find a solution how to revitalize you, how to make you happy, and how to make jnana and vairagya once again strong and being attracted to people. Narada makes that promise. And Narada then says, Bhakti, let me also once again reassure you. Natapor bhirna vedaischa jnyanenapi karmana arihim sadhyate bhaktya pramanam tatra gopikaha. The gopikas of Vraja teach one very important lesson. It is not tapas. It is not study of Vedas. It is not performing jnana yoga. It is not performing various ashtanga yogas. It is simple way to connect to Krishna through bhakti. That alone, bhaktya pramanam tatra gopikaha. Therefore, bhakti is the ultimate purifier, and I will find a solution how to reach out to people in Kali Yuga to spread this message. Nrinam janma sahasrena bhaktau pritir hijayate kalau bhaktir bhaktya Krishna purastitaha. It is only through bhakti. With bhakti, the boundless, we can bind the boundless. Only with bhakti, we can catch the uncatchable. We can reach the unreachable. We can access the inaccessible. The finite gets infinitized because of bhakti. And Bhagavan repeatedly descends to give this message, and bhakti, be assured. Narada makes a solemn pledge. I will find a solution to all your problems. And immediately, bhakti is thrilled. Finally, her prayers are answered. And she has been waiting for this very moment. And she thanks Narada profusely. And she says, hey Narada, I'm really thankful to you for the role that you're going to play in reviving bhakti once in Kali Yuga. But I'm still worried. I'm still worried for my sons. Look at jnana. Look at vairagya. They are in a stage of coma. I don't even know what to do. Nobody seemed to be bothered. Possibly it is only you who can even help them. Narada immediately tries to lift jnana and vairagya. Is unable to lift them because whatever efforts he puts in, they are unable to be revived. They are in such a bad shape, emaciated, so very weak, devoid of any energy, devoid of any life. Then Narada speaks to them. Hey jnana, hey vairagya, wake up, wake up. No response. It's like someone speaking to us. Wake up, wake up. No response. Jnana and vairagya are in deep slumber. Immediately Narada takes a resolve. He sits next to them and starts to do upadesha into the ears of jnana and vairagya. He starts to chant all the Vedas. He continues to chant all the Vedas. After completion of the chanting of all the Vedas, he starts to chant all the Upanishads. Still, jnana and vairagya are in deep slumber, no energy. Then Narada decides to chant the entire Bhagavad Gita. Slowly and steadily, some revival happens. This jnana and vairagya slowly get up. They are still very, very weak. Still they need support. Narada is shocked, surprised. After chanting the Vedas, after chanting the Upanishads, after chanting the Brahma Sutras, after chanting Bhagavad Gita, jnana and vairagya have not been revitalized. He is crestfallen. Now it's a time for Narada to be dejected, not Bhakti Devi. Narada is now dejected. Now Narada says, I did not expect this to happen, hey Bhakti Devi. I thought I will be in a position to revive jnana and vairagya. As Narada is crestfallen, suddenly there is a divine sound from the skies. Then there is a now proclamation that happens. Hey Narada, there is a very important tapasya that you need to do, and you will encounter a Mahapurusha who will give you the means to resurrect jnana and vairagya and bring happiness back to Bhakti Devi. So then Narada decides to take leave of Bhakti Devi and her sons, jnana and vairagya. And then Narada travels all over Bhuloka. Wherever he goes, he meets several rishis. And he keeps constantly asking them for solution. And every rishi that he converses with is also equally shocked. How is it even possible that you chanted the Vedas, you chanted the Upanishads, you chanted the Brahma Sutras, you chanted Bhagavad Gita, and if they cannot revive jnana and vairagya, what else can? We have no solution for you, Narada. Narada goes all over, and finally Narada reaches Badrikashrama. Narada decides to perform severe tapas there. He does a penance for a long time, and then he happens to meet in Badrikashrama the Sanat Kumaras. Sanaka and the Kumaras meet with Narada. And then Narada submits to them and inquires. He narrates whatever has happened. He narrates the bad state of Bhakti Devi. He talks about how both jnana and vairagya are completely in slumber, in a state of weakness. And then Sanat Kumaras then they say, hey Narada, you of all people, you should be knowing what is the solution. It looks like you have forgotten. It looks like you yourself have forgotten. Just rewind and go back and reminisce your own encounter with Vedavyasa. And then do a recap of what was your conversation with Vedavyasa. It is Vedavyasa who was dejected after compiling the Vedas, after writing the Brahma Sutras, after writing the Mahabharata, and you yourself gave him the solution to address his dejection. And what was that solution? It was that nectarine narration of Bhagavatam by Shuka. Shuka has narrated Bhagavatam to Parikshit, and that nectar is the solution to address Bhakti Devi's grief, to bring both Vairagya and Jnana back to action. It is by listening to Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Bhakti Devi will be pleased. By listening to Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Jnana and Vairagya will be revitalized, will be revived. Narada has a very important question. Narada says, I like your solution, I understand, but I have one question, hey Sanat Kumara. Now, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is considered the very essence of the Vedas and the Vedanta. Now, if the Vedas and the Vedanta cannot revive Jnana and Vairagya, how can the essence of Vedas and Vedanta revive the same Jnana and Vairagya? How is it possible? Somehow it doesn't seem to add up. I need you to enlighten me. Then Sanat Kumara beautifully explains, hey Narada, understand this. The vital fluid of a tree is present all over the tree. All over the tree, the vital fluid present, right from the roots, all the way to the trunks, to all the branches, to the very tips of the tree, the same vital fluid is present. But then, only when that vital fluid accumulates in the fruit of a tree, it becomes delicious and tasty. No other part of the tree can be consumed. No other part of the tree is delicious. Only when the same vital fluid which is spread throughout the tree gets accumulated in a fruit. Bhagavatam is that nectarine fruit of this desire tree called the Vedas and the Vedanta. And therefore, by consuming the nectarine fruit of Bhagavatam, Jnana and Vairagya will certainly be relieved and they will be revived. Also, Sanat Kumara gives another example. Ghee is present in the milk. We may not be able to notice it. Only when we extract it, then we get to notice and we get to taste the ghee. Similarly, by extracting the very essence of the Vedas and the Vedanta in the form of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, it becomes so very delicious, and it becomes nourishing to consume the same. Narada is thrilled. Narada looks at Sanat Kumara and says, Narada Vacha. Yad darshanam cha vinihantya shubhani sadhyaha shreyastanoti bhavavat sukhadarbanam. He says, Yad darshanam. Just your darshana, he Sanat Kumaras, just by looking at you, now I immediately, all the challenges automatically dissolve. All the doubts get immediately answered. You bring so much solace. Just your sheer presence is so very uplifting, Sanat Kumaras. Nishesha Shesha Mukagita Kataikapana. You have the blessing of listening to Bhagavatam as narrated originally by Adisesha. It seems originally Adisesha narrated Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and as Adisesha was narrating, Bhagavan too was listening, and Sanat Kumaras were blessed to listen to the glorious narration of Bhagavata. Nishesha Shesha Mukagita Kathaikapana. Prema Prakashakritayo Sharanam Gatosmi. I take refuge. Narada takes refuge in Sanat Kumaras and says, I surrender to you. You are my gurus. You bless me so that I can take your message and spread it across Bhuloka. Bhagyodayena Bahujanma Samarjitena Satsangacha Labhate Purusho Yadacha. To get the satsanga of a person, a saintly person like you, only happens after many lifetimes, and so very blessed I am. Ajnana hetu kritamoha madandhakara. The andhakara, because of ajnana, is now completely dispelled. Nasham vidayaki tadodaya vivekaha. I have the discriminatory knowledge because of your sheer presence and blessings. And Narada, prostrating to the Sanat Kumaras, takes that uplifting message, and so that he can go back and revive, restore Vairagya and Jnana back to health, knowing that when Jnana and Vairagya are restored, revitalized, Bhakti Devi shall become happy, and together when Jnana, Vairagya and Bhakti start to dance in the hearts of people, all the ills of Kali can easily be addressed. Thus, the second adhyaya of Śrīmad Bhāgavata māhātmya concludes with Narada's endeavor to further take the message of Sanat Kumaras. We will continue to relish Bhāgavata māhātmya in the coming session. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu.